The cold is what I remember most. Not the fear, not the blood, not the sound of men screaming for help over the radio. The cold. That bone-deep, soul-crushing cold that settled into Korea in the winter of 1950 and never left. 20 below zero. Sometimes 30 below. Cold enough to freeze hydraulic fluid. Cold enough to kill you in minutes if you went down. Cold enough to make you wonder if dying might actually be warmer. I'm Captain James Sullivan, United States Air Force 3rd Air Rescue Squadron. Before Korea, I was a crop duster in Iowa. Learned to fly in a beat-up Stearman, spraying pesticides over cornfields for $3 an hour. Good work, simple work. You flew low, did your job, went home. Then North Korea invaded the South in June 1950. And suddenly the Air Force needed helicopter pilots. They needed them desperately. This new machine, the Sikorsky H-5, could land in places fixed-wing aircraft couldn't touch, could hover, could pull wounded men out of impossible situations. But nobody really knew how to use them yet. Helicopters were experimental, temperamental, dangerous even in good conditions. They'd been around since the end of World War II, but this was the first real war where they'd be tested. I volunteered in August 1950. Figured flying a helicopter couldn't be much harder than flying a crop duster 6 feet off the ground. I was 28 years old and thought I understood risk. I was wrong about the helicopter. It was harder, much harder. The H-5 was a beast, underpowered, unstable, with a single engine that quit if you looked at it wrong. The collective and cyclic controls were sensitive, too sensitive. Overcorrect by an inch and you'd flip. The tail rotor was weak. A strong crosswind could spin you like a top, but it could hover. And in war, hovering meant you could land on a mountainside, in a clearing, on a frozen reservoir, anywhere a wounded man was lying. By December 1950, I'd been flying medevac missions for 4 months, pulled out maybe 30 wounded, got pretty good at it. Then the Chinese entered the war, and everything went to hell. November 27th, 1950. That's when the Chinese hit us. We knew they were coming. Intelligence had been reporting Chinese troop movements for weeks, but nobody expected this. Not this many, not this coordinated. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese soldiers came pouring across the Yalu River. They hit the 8th Army in the west. They hit X-Corps at the Chosin Reservoir in the east. Hit us everywhere at once, in the middle of the worst winter in decades. The Marines at Chosin got surrounded, cut off. 17,000 men trapped in sub-zero temperatures, fighting maybe 10 times their number. The Chinese were coming at them in human waves, blowing bugles, attacking at night. And the wounded started piling up. The radio calls came in constantly. We need medevac at grid coordinates. Frostbite cases, gunshot wounds, men with limbs frozen solid, men who'd been lying in the snow for hours, maybe days, waiting for extraction. I flew my first mission into Chosin on November 28th. The landscape was unbelievable. Mountains covered in snow, everything white and frozen. Beautiful if you ignored the war. I landed at Hagaru-ri, a small village where the Marines had set up a perimeter. The aid station was overwhelmed. Hundreds of casualties, more coming in every hour. The doctors were doing triage in tents, trying to figure out who could wait and who needed evacuation immediately. My H-5 could carry 2 litters, 2 men at a time, maybe 3 if they could sit. That was it. I loaded 2 Marines. Both had been shot in the chest. Both were barely conscious. The corpsmen strapped them to external litters mounted on the sides of the helicopter, exposed to the wind, the cold, the air. "Keep them alive," one corpsman said. "They've got maybe an hour." I took off into wind that was gusting to 30 knots. The helicopter shook and yawed. The wounded Marines were right there, strapped to the outside, no protection. I could see their faces, see them grimacing in pain. The flight to the hospital ship took 35 minutes, felt like hours. Every time the helicopter bucked in the wind, I thought the litters would tear loose, thought the wounded would fall. We made it, landed on the deck of the USS Consolation. Hospital corpsmen rushed out, unstrapped the Marines, carried them below. One of them was already dead, died somewhere during the flight. The cold, maybe. The wounds, I don't know. The other one might have made it. I never found out. I refueled and flew back to Chosin. 2 more wounded were waiting. That was the first day. I flew 6 missions. It would get so much worse. December, the coldest December on record. The Marines were fighting their way out of Chosin, a 78-mile retreat through Chinese positions. They called it attacking in a different direction, but everyone knew what it was. We were getting the hell out before we got overrun, and the whole way men kept getting hit, kept freezing, kept needing extraction. I flew every day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times if the weather held. The H-5 wasn't designed for this, wasn't designed for sub-zero temperatures, thin mountain air, constant operation. But we flew it anyway because men were dying. The worst part was the loading. The corpsman would bring the wounded to my helicopter, and I'd have to decide who went and who stayed. 2 litters, that's all I had. But there'd be 10 men lying there, all of them critical, all of them needing immediate evacuation. This one, a corpsman would say, pointing to a Marine with a sucking chest wound. And this one, a kid with both legs shattered. The others would just wait. Lie there in the snow while I flew the first 2 out. Hope they'd still be alive when I came back. Sometimes they weren't. December 6th, I got a call for an emergency extraction at Kotori. Single casualty, critical. Coordinates were on a ridge line, exposed position, taking fire. I flew in alone. The ridge was narrow, barely room to land. Chinese troops were maybe 200 yards away, shooting at anything that moved. I could hear bullets pinging off the helicopter's metal skin. There was a Marine lying in the snow, a sergeant, maybe 25 years old. His name was Tom Bridger from Montana. I know because he told me. Kept talking the whole time, even though half his guts were hanging out. Stepped on a mine, he said. His voice was calm, too calm. Stupid, right? Made it through 2 weeks of fighting, then stepped on a damn mine. A corpsman and I loaded him onto the litter. His intestines were frozen, literally frozen. I could see ice crystals on them. Am I going to make it, Captain? I should have lied. Should have told him, yes, absolutely, you'll be fine. But I looked at his wounds and knew. Knew he had maybe 20 minutes, 30 if he was lucky. I don't know, Sergeant. Yeah, he said. Yeah, I figured. I flew as fast as the H-5 would go. Pushed the engine past redline. Didn't care if it quit. Didn't care if we crashed. Just needed to get Bridger to the hospital ship. He died 3 minutes from the ship. I watched it happen in my mirror. Saw him stop moving. Stop breathing. Just gone. I landed anyway. Delivered his body. What else was I supposed to do? The corpsmen unstrapped him. One of them looked at me. You okay, Captain? Yeah, I'm fine. Next mission? Give yourself an hour. You've been flying for 6 hours straight. Next mission. He gave me coordinates. Another ridge line. 3 wounded. I refueled and took off. Bridger's blood was still frozen to the litter. Didn't have time to clean it. The next Marine would just have to lie in it. The retreat from Chosin took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of constant flying. 2 weeks of loading wounded Marines onto my helicopter and hoping they'd survive the flight. Most did. Some didn't. The helicopter was falling apart. The engine was running rough. The transmission was leaking oil. Ice kept forming on the rotor blades, making the whole aircraft vibrate like it was coming apart. The fuel lines froze regularly. I'd have to land, build a fire under the engine, thaw the lines, and take off again. One time the engine quit completely, just stopped mid-flight. I was at 800 feet, carrying 2 wounded, when everything went silent, except the wind and the rotor spinning in auto-rotation. I'd practiced auto-rotation in training. You use the falling aircraft's momentum to keep the rotor spinning, then flare at the last second to cushion the landing. In theory, you walk away. In practice, with 2 wounded Marines strapped to the outside and a mountainside coming up fast, you just try not to kill everyone. We hit hard. The skids collapsed. The rotor blades shattered, but we didn't flip, didn't explode. The wounded were shaken up, but alive. I radioed for extraction, sat in the snow for 3 hours while Chinese patrols moved nearby. Finally, another helicopter picked us up. Me, the 2 wounded, and the corpsman who'd been with us. They gave me a new helicopter the next day, told me to keep flying. So I did. I stopped sleeping much, maybe 2 or 3 hours a night. Couldn't sleep anyway. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Bridger, saw his frozen intestines, saw him dying in the mirror while I flew as fast as I could. Saw all the others, too. The ones who died during the flight. The ones who died waiting for me to come back. The ones I couldn't fit on the helicopter. Lieutenant Frank Morrison, another medevac pilot, he cracked up around December 10th, just refused to fly. Sat in the ready room, shaking, crying, saying he couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't watch another man die in his helicopter. They sent him to the rear, posted him to a desk job in Japan. I never saw him again. Part of me envied him. Part of me hated him. He got to stop, got to walk away. But most of me just felt nothing. I was a machine by then, a mechanism that flew wounded men out of frozen mountains. That's all I was, all I could be. The Marines made it out of Chosin on December 11th, linked up with the 8th Army. The evacuation was over. I'd flown 63 missions in 2 weeks, evacuated 117 wounded Marines, lost 12 during flight, lost another 20 or so who died waiting for a second trip. They gave me a Distinguished Flying Cross, told me I'd saved lives, told me I was a hero. I didn't feel like a hero, felt like a bus driver, just running a route between the dying and the dead. January 4th, 1951, a month after Chosin, the Chinese had pushed us back below the 38th parallel. Seoul fell for the second time. We were retreating again, and the wounded kept coming. I got a call for a medevac near the town of Wonju. 4 casualties, critical. Coordinates were in a valley, supposedly a safe area. Easy extraction. I should have known better. There were no safe areas anymore. I flew in with another pilot, a guy named Ray Kowalski from Detroit. 2 helicopters, so we could take all 4 wounded in one trip. Ray was good, experienced. We'd flown together a dozen times. We landed in the valley. Snow was falling, visibility maybe half a mile. The wounded were waiting. 4 soldiers from the 2nd Infantry Division. All of them hit by artillery. Bad wounds, missing limbs, massive trauma. We were loading them when the mortars started falling. Chinese troops had infiltrated the area. Probably saw us land. Definitely heard the helicopters. They started dropping mortars on our position, trying to take us out. The first round landed 50 yards away. The second was closer. The corpsman was screaming at us to go, to take off now. Ray's helicopter lifted off first. I saw it rise maybe 30 feet. Then a mortar round hit directly beneath it. The explosion flipped Ray's helicopter upside down. It crashed into the snow, rotors disintegrating, fuel spraying everywhere. Then it caught fire. I saw Ray in the cockpit. Saw him trying to get out, but he was trapped. The helicopter was on its side, the door was crushed, and the fire was spreading fast. I should have taken off, should have saved my 2 wounded and gotten out. That's what the manual said. That's what training said. Don't risk 2 helicopters when you can save one. But I couldn't leave Ray burning. I jumped out of my helicopter, ran to the wreck. The heat was incredible. The ammunition Ray carried was cooking off, bullets firing randomly. The 2 wounded he'd been carrying were dead, killed in the crash. I reached the cockpit, grabbed Ray's arm, pulled. He was screaming. His leg was pinned under twisted metal, and his flight suit was on fire. The corpsman who'd run over with me, I never got his name, he had a fire extinguisher. Sprayed the flames down enough for us to work. We pulled, yanked. Finally, Ray's leg came free. Most of his leg, anyway. The boot stayed behind, still trapped in the wreckage. We dragged him through the snow to my helicopter. Another mortar round landed where we'd been standing 5 seconds earlier. The corpsman helped me load Ray, helped me get the other 2 wounded secured. "Go!" he shouted. "Go now!" I took off, overloaded. 3 wounded plus Ray. The helicopter struggled to gain altitude. I could hear the engine straining, feel the cyclic shaking in my hand. We made it, barely. Landed at a MASH unit 20 miles away. Ray lost his leg, lost his career, lost everything he'd worked for, because I'd taken too long loading wounded, because the Chinese had been watching, because I'd hesitated. He never blamed me, thanked me for saving his life, but I blamed me, still do. The Korean War ended in July 1953. Armistice signed, ceasefire established, everyone went home, except we didn't really go home, not the important parts of us. I stayed in the Air Force, kept flying helicopters. Vietnam came along, and suddenly I was training younger pilots to do medevac missions, teaching them how to fly into hot zones, how to load wounded under fire, how to decide who lives and who waits. I was good at teaching. Everyone said so. But I couldn't tell them the truth. Couldn't tell them that every decision you make haunts you. That every man who dies waiting for you becomes a ghost you carry forever. I retired in 1970 as a lieutenant colonel. 20 years of service, commendations, medals, a career to be proud of. But Korea was what defined me. Those 2 weeks at Chosin, those 63 missions, the faces I still see when I close my eyes. I looked up some of the Marines I'd evacuated, tried to find out what happened to them. Some had died. Their wounds were too severe, even with quick evacuation. Some had survived, lost limbs but survived, built lives, had families. One of them, a corporal named Eddie Harris from Louisiana, he wrote me a letter in 1975, said he wanted to thank me, said I'd saved his life on December 3rd, 1950. He'd been shot in the chest, lying in the snow for 4 hours before I picked him up. "I've thought about you every day for 25 years, he wrote. Wondered who you were, wondered if you knew that you gave me my life back. I have 3 kids now, 6 grandchildren. None of them would exist if you hadn't landed that helicopter. Just wanted you to know. Wanted you to know that it mattered." I cried when I read that letter. First time I'd cried since Korea, because he thought I was a hero, thought I'd saved him. But all I could think about were the ones I didn't save. The 12 who died during flight. The ones who died waiting for a second trip. Bridger and his frozen intestines. Ray and his leg. The cold, always the cold. I'm 78 years old now, live in Arizona, picked the hottest, driest place I could find. Thought maybe if I got far enough from snow, far enough from cold, I could stop feeling it. Doesn't work. I still feel it. Still wake up cold, even when it's 90 degrees outside. Still feel that Korean winter in my bones. My wife passed away in 2015. Cancer. I held her hand at the end, and all I could think about was holding hands with dying Marines, telling them they'd be okay even when I knew they wouldn't be. People ask me sometimes what it was like, flying medevac in Korea. They want to hear about the heroics, the rescues, the lives saved. I tell them it was cold, that's all, just cold. I don't tell them about the decisions, about choosing which wounded Marine got to live and which one had to wait, about watching men die 6 feet away from me, strapped to the outside of my helicopter, dying in the wind. I don't tell them about Ray burning in that wreckage, about Bridger talking calmly while his guts froze, about Morrison cracking up and getting to walk away while the rest of us had to keep flying. I don't tell them that the helicopter didn't save anyone. It just moved the dying around. Sometimes we got them to a hospital in time, sometimes we didn't. The Korean War officially killed 36,574 Americans. But the number's higher than that. Has to be. Because some of us died slowly, over decades, from wounds that didn't show on X-rays. I flew 63 missions in 2 weeks, evacuated 117 Marines from Chosin. They gave me a medal for it. But I left part of myself on every one of those missions. Left it in the snow, in the cold, in the frozen faces of men who trusted me to save them and died anyway. The war ended 70 years ago. The helicopter I flew is in a museum somewhere. The H-5 Dragonfly, they called it. First helicopter to prove itself in combat. First helicopter to show that you could save lives with a machine that could hover. But I don't think about the lives we saved. Can't think about them without thinking about the ones we didn't save, the ones we couldn't save, the ones we left behind. I'm still flying those missions, still loading wounded onto external litters, still racing against the cold and the blood loss and the simple mathematical reality that 2 litters can't carry 10 men. Still making choices that no human being should have to make. Still watching men die in my mirror while I fly as fast as I can. The cold never left Korea, never left that winter, never left me. I'm still there, still flying, still cold, still trying to save men who are already dead, still counting the missions. 63. The number never changes. Never will. 63 times I landed in the snow and decided who lived and who died. 63 times I flew away and left someone behind. We called it air rescue, called it medevac, called it saving lives. But it was just mathematics, cold, brutal mathematics, and the equation never balanced. The ones you saved never equaled the ones you lost. Not even close. I'm still doing the math, still trying to make it balance, still failing. Still cold, always cold.